everybody. Welcome to the Opening Tee podcast, part of the Awesemo Golf podcast series. I am your host for this little short form podcast, Jason Rouslin, and if it's your first time jumping by the Opening Tee podcast, I certainly appreciate you coming on and doing so. And of course, if you like the content in here, like and subscribe to our channel. It makes us known whether you like it or not, so I appreciate that right off the bat. If this is your first time joining, what I do in this Opening Tee podcast is I go over all the important facts from the previous week, like all of the statistics that might be important for the upcoming week, and then I try and set the tone, set the pace for what the upcoming week is going to become, get your brain to start thinking about what players might be good for the upcoming week and what players you want to be focusing on when those salaries come out, if they match the salary you were looking for or you may think are underpriced. Now this week's going to be a little different. Well, first off, it's going to be a little different because Tiger Woods is back in the field. That's always exciting, of course, but it's also going to be the second straight week that a PGA Tour tournament is held on the same golf course. So very interesting. We haven't had that in quite some time, so it'll be interesting to see how that plays out, if we see a lot of the same guys up there or not. Now, again, the field is going to be very different from last week. There's only 120 players, but we're going to get into that, of course, in the second portion of the podcast. But how I start off this podcast every single week is to force some facts from the previous week. And I get to throw Euro back in there as Mark Warren wins the Austria Open as he ousted players like Schneider and Vestling for the title. The best finish for a stud, though, maybe going into this week as they go for their second straight week in Austria, is Connor Smythe of Scotland. Came in tied for fourth and it continues his consistent play over there, so maybe a player to watch for this upcoming week. My second fact is obviously going to talk about is a young man's tour, Collin Morikawa. Man, it's been almost a year since that RBC Canadian Open when I started to rant and rave about this guy. And here we are a year later beating Justin Thomas in a playoff to win the Workday Charity Open at a tough golf course in Muirfield Village. I mean, everything is so impressive. I don't even have much to say other than it's almost improbable, and it'll be very interesting to see what he does in the majors. Is he going to continue this incredible run of winning golf tournaments against the best players in the world, similar to what we saw maybe out of Jordan Spieth when he first came out? You know, I think that Collin Morikawa certainly has some of that capability in him, and obviously winning more golf tournaments than he has missed cuts on the PGA Tour is almost an improbable stat. So, young man's tour. It's not just Collin Morikawa, as Viktor Hovland, 5 straight top 25s to start off this return to golf and a third place finish here at the Workday. So, very impressive for these two young kids that have only been in the game for less than 52 weeks or maybe right at it. Incredible things to come, and for a great spot for the game of golf, especially when all your other stars are not even close to their maturity. Maybe the biggest star, Tiger Woods, maybe a little closer to his maturity than any of us would like. But still, plenty of golf left in him, and he can always get around Augusta, no matter how old he is. All right, so my high and low for the week before we move on to some of the fun stuff. My high and low, we'll start with the low. Spieth, Hanan, and Scotty Scheffler all just tanked after that restart. We'll talk about that in the miscut segment, though I won't spend too much time on that. Whereas my high side, Morikawa, that saved my week in terms of not having catastrophic losses through the board. Obviously I tend to bet him on most weeks, so that paid off pretty nicely. But again, not enough to get rid of the DFS losses. That's for sure. Patrick Cantlay, a top 10, a nice showing there, and Sam Burns, a top 20 after a bad Sunday. Still not a bad showing and a decent payout. Could have been a lot better. So maybe somebody to look at for the upcoming week. But before we move on to the fun stuff, the Not Your Average Cut Sweat segment, and then on to the stats, I'd like to thank Superdraft, the sponsor of our show. If you haven't played over there, man, I had such a bad week, but I had a couple of good multipliers, so I was able to have a pretty decent cash over there. The future of daily fantasy sports has arrived. Experience Superdraft's exclusive game mode multiplier. Say goodbye to salary restrictions and hello to lineup freedom. Use your fantasy sports knowledge to draft any player you want and build your very own dream team. Countless lineup possibilities let you experience daily fantasy sports the way you want. Superdraft is offering contests right now for PGA, NASCAR, and MMA. Couple of weeks, they're going to be offering NBA as well as MLB and possibly NFL. So you can enjoy the best of DFS all year round. Sign up for SuperDraft using promo code Awesemo10, and it's $10 free on your first deposit of $10 or more, and $20 total free on your first deposit of $100 or more. New users also look to download it in the App Store or at superdraft.io. SuperDraft, no limits and more winning. All right, now the fun stuff. Not your average cut sweat segment. Jerry Kelly and MJ Defoe both needed birdie on their last hole to get it. Jerry Kelly needed a 33-footer, and he bangs it in. We're talking about the same Jerry Kelly that's been playing on the Champions Tour that averaged 257 yards per drive this week. But, hey, that didn't stop him from a top 25 finish. No, it didn't. The Monday qualifier, I heard Jim Nantz pronounce this guy's name, and I'm like, really? That's how you pronounce it? But anyways, he was able to also get himself into the top 25. A really nice paycheck for the guy. On the opposite side of things, we got a lot of guys. So let's start off with Brant Snedeker. He needed a 21-footer to miss. Couldn't do it. Max Homa needed a birdie on 18. Couldn't do it. In fact, he got up and down from almost dead man zone to secure himself what he thought was going to be good enough to get inside the cut line. It wasn't. The minus ones ended up getting knocked out pretty late there. Jim Furyk needed a 10-footer. Missed it. Aaron Wise. This is just terrible. He shot 5 under, 4 over to miss the cut. I mean, he really can't find the weekend. Here's another guy that can't find the weekend, though. Let's talk about him next. This is a perfect segue. It's honestly a routine thing now at this point to talk about Cameron Davis in this section. Ready for this? Okay. He bogeyed 10. All right, so he needed to play 3 under his remaining 8 holes from there to make the cut. All right, the next 4 holes. So this is 11, 12, 13, 14. He goes birdie, 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 eagle. Then he comes to a par 5, one of the easiest holes on the course. Somehow makes double. Bogey 16. Then a birdie on 17. Only followed by a bogey on 18 to miss by 2. Unreal. A couple of more here. Brooks Koepka needed 30 on the back. Shot 31. Rob Oppenheim needed a 30-footer. He couldn't make it like Jerry Kelly could. Chris Kirk needed a 31 on the back 9, shot 32, missing a 17-footer on 18. Mark Anderson needed par from the middle of the fairway on 9 and hit the water. He went packing for the weekend. A couple more guys. Scotty Scheffler needed to play the front 9 and under par. Couldn't. He got owned by the restart and shot 1 over, including a 4-foot miss on 9 or his 18th hole. And then the last 2. Jordan Spieth and Ben On. One was at -3. One was at -2, so respectively. Spieth at -3, Han at -2. The horn blew for the weather. After the restart, they each still had 2 par 5s to go. They were through the tough 9. They had the easy holes to come. In fact, Jordan Spieth's make-cut percentage was 96% at the time, and they both missed, killing my Colin Morikawa lineup with Patrick Cantlay and Sam Burns on FanDuel. Absolutely brutal blow. Let's move on right through that because I'm certainly done talking about it and go into the statistical review of the last week and see what we can find in matchup and see what we can find maybe going forward for the upcoming week. So, strokes gained off the tee this week. Victor Hovland was incredible. Ricky Fowler, Sam Ryder, Adam Schenk, Justin Thomas, Colin Morikawa, Gary Woodland, Roger Sloan, Kevin Streelman again, Russell Henley, and Patrick Cantlay. Driving accuracy, Jerry Kelly. Wow. Averaged 255 yards per drive, but hey, you know what? He hit the fairway. Kevin Streelman, so he was up there. That's a good match. Trez Reavie, Victor Hovland is up there. Good match. Sam Ryder's up there. Good match. Chesson Hadley, not up there. Steve Stricker, Colin Morikawa up there, and Russell Henley up there. So very interesting. We got a big-time crossover in driving accuracy this week, so something certainly to take a look at. In terms of driving distance, we got the MJ Defoe. Again, I guess I'm pronouncing that totally wrong. I apologize. Cam Champ, Sam Burns, Gary Woodland, Patrick Cantlay, Phil Mickelson, Keegan Bradley, Hideki Matsuyama, John Rahm, and Adam Schenk. So maybe I would say maybe a little heavier on driving accuracy in terms of guys we saw up in strokes gained off the tee. There were some crossover with the driving distance, like Patrick Cantlay and John Rahm. No, not John Rahm. Sorry, Adam Schenk. But a little bit more from the driving accuracy this week, something maybe to take a look at, certainly going forward. Strokes gained on the approach, Keegan Bradley was very hot this week, followed by CT Pan. Of course, Colin Morikawa, Justin Thomas, Troy Merritt, Victor Hovland, Richie Werenski, Taylor Gooch, Russell Henley, Hideki Matsuyama, Brendan Steele, Xander Schauffele, Corey Connors, Sam Burns, and Sam Ryder. Had to get in both of those Sams there. I thought that was kind of funny at the end. Okay, now we move into greens in regulation, which is, of course, the age-old statistic for this. And we do have a bunch of crossover. Hideki Matsuyama was up there. Russell Henley, again. So Russell Henley, strokes gained off the tee was good, and his greens in regulation was good. And he was in the top 10 in strokes gained on the approach. Very interesting. Kevin Streelman also hit a bunch of greens, as did Henrik Norlander. Keegan Bradley, Colin Morikawa, Corey Connors hit a bunch of greens. Nick Taylor, Justin Thomas, and Gary Woodland. So it looks like the only guy from the gentlemen's that hit the most greens in regulation. No, sorry. Looks like all top 10 on the greens in regulation are also found in the strokes gained on the approach side as well, or at least in the top 10 or 12. So very interesting there. In terms of strokes gained around the green, J.J. Spawn was very good. Patrick Reed, Matt Wallace, Ricky Fowler, Matt Jones, Richie Werenski, Brian Gay, Ian Poulter, Jason Day, Tim Wilkinson, Brendan Steele, and Chase Seifert. So I wanted to bring that up because I mentioned in a lot of last week's content how important strokes gained on around the green was. And as you can see, Ricky Fowler had a top 10, Ian Poulter a top 10. In fact, I think Ian Poulter might have slid into the top 5 there. Jason Day, his first top 10 in quite some time, as well as Chase Seifert, who had a top 5. So as you can see, very, very important. Again, a big focus coming on playing the same golf course, of course, coming up this week. When we move on to putting, who was hot on these greens? The Monday qualifier, MJ Defoe, shows up again. Ian Poulter, Denny McCarthy, what a surprise. Gary Woodland, Chase Seifert, Stuart Sink, Billy Horschel, Charlie Hoffman, who ended up in the top 10 this week, Xander Schauffele, who finished just outside, Austin Cook, and Zach Johnson. How about that, huh? Let's match it up with putts per green in regulation. Let's see if we have any crossover. When I looked earlier, there were a couple. Colin Morikawa, Rory Sabatini, Gary Woodland. There's a crossover. Matt Jones, Billy Horschel. There's a little crossover. Zach Johnson, Austin Cook, Ian Poulter, and Justin Thomas. So maybe when we get towards the bottom, the last 5 are all figured out there, which makes sense. Putts per green in regulation, the lower amount of putts you have, the likely are you're either gaining strokes putting on the field or your iron shots are just so ridiculously close that there's not much to be gained or not many putts to be had. All right, top birdie review before we go on to next week. Colin Morikawa, 26, and this is birdie or better, I apologize. 26 on the week. Victor Hovland, 25. Sam Ryder, 23. Then we had a bunch of 22. Gary Woodland, Jason Day, Ian Poulter, Matt Jones, Justin Thomas, Billy Horschel. And then 21, Chase Seifert, Sepp Straka, John Rahm, Shane Lowry, and Chesson Hadley. All right, so we've got a tremendous amount of golf coming up still to be played. We're playing for $1 million every single week. It doesn't matter what tournament it is, if it's a major or if it's the Memorial or the Workday Charity Open for that matter. But I can tell you that the other offerings as the major comes up will get deeper. So what better time to join on the Awesemo Plus side and join us for the golf content. We've got so much. First of all, we've got the league leading, I think I can call it that, projections put out by Awesemo Baker, the number 1 ranked DFS player in the world, and I think he might even be ranked number 2 in golf. So right there, if he's not ranked number 1 in golf, he's ranked very close to it. $8.95 for the week. So you get all of his projections, all of the ownership projections, all of my premium content, all of Ben Raza, also a top player's premium content, and so much more, including the Slack channel and so on. So perfect time to join. $8.95 for the week. Just basically take out 1 or 2 lineups or 1 lineup that you weren't going to put in. Join us, and we will give you the best information out there to help you maximize your returns. So step onto the golf course today with your Awesemo Plus membership. All right, let's go on here to the Memorial. Again, it's going to be somewhat similar information to what we heard last week, but I'll run through it really quickly. Of course, if you're looking for the updated information on this week's tournament, the information that I'm going to give, check out my First Cut article live and free right now on the Awesemo website. I'm also going to be updating it on Monday with the newest information from this week's tournament in terms of driving accuracy, greens in regulation, and, of course, a couple of more. So check that out coming up. Okay, so we're playing for $1 million again on DraftKings. As I mentioned before, I like to throw that out there. But we're playing at Muirfield Village. Now, we have 4 par 3s. They play 200, 185, and 201, so pretty similar there. 10 par 4s, 470, 455, 401, 447, 412, 471, 455, and then 363 is the stated number for the Memorial. This is what I got from last year. However, this week it played as a 300 and call it 15 to 20 yard hole, which made it drivable, and it ended up being a really fun hole. The players ended up liking it, so I'll be interested to see if they decide to go back to it, maybe for at least one round at the Memorial, since it did provide some pretty fun golf shots. Victor Hovland hit it to 3 feet. There was plenty of bogeys and doubles with the water hazard front right. It was just a really decent quality hole. A lot of risk reward there. Don't know if they'll go back to it, but in any case, we finish off with a 480 and 484. The 4 par 5s all were reachable this past week. They ranged 527, 563, 567, and 529. So pretty good there in terms of the par 5s reachability. I saw players have not every player, of course, but there was at least one eagle on every single one of them this past week. So I expect to probably see that again. Maybe not, though, if the rough length does get pretty heavy. Might be a little harder. Okay, so that adds up to a 7,400-yard course, a par 72. Driving accuracy, as I mentioned, I'm going to have you the updated stats on the First Cut article, but for now, I'll tell you last year's Memorial Tournament, 70% driving accuracy. Driving distance, however, not, and we saw it again this past week, a lot of 3-woods off the tee, especially for position. Some people hit drivers, but not a ton of drivers to hit. We'll see what Bryson DeChambeau does. Under 63% for greens in regulation. And, of course, around the green, we saw it this week, too. Just really tough. The rough is longer. There's a lot of elevation to it. Just a lot going on. However, when you get on the greens, putts are there to be made. We saw Justin Thomas had a 50-footer in the playoff. Colin Morikawa followed it up with a 25-footer, so that was great to see. Who's going to be playing here? So I'll spend a couple of minutes talking about this week because it is much different. We have, first off, the winner of the Memorial Tournament. We're going to have 2 guys, William McGirt and David Lingmerth. They're going to get in because of it. Then we got the winner of the Players, the winner of the Masters, winner of the U.S. Open, winner of the PGA, winner of the Open, winner of the PGA, winner of the Open, then winner of the PGA, which that's how Jimmy Walker got in. Winner of the WGC Match Play, that's how Kevin Kisner got in. Winner of the WGC Mexico, that's how Phil Mickelson got in. Winner of HSBC, winner of the API, winner of the PGA. Last name Ryder Cup team, so that's Alex Noren. That's how he got in. And if I didn't mention some of the winners of these previous tournaments, it's because it's obvious, or they're in the top 50 in the world. Either or. Okay, so last one. The next one is President's Cup. So Byung-Hyun An, CT Pan, and Hao Tong Lee for the first time since the hiatus will be getting a start. Winner of the U.S. Amateur, Andy Ogletree. Money list from the international tours. Couple interesting ones here. Padraig Harrington, Matthias Schwab, and Jason Scrivener out of Australia. So some interesting names there. Then we got some sponsors exemptions. Looks like Zach Blair, Henrik Norlander, KJ Choi, Ernie Els, Bill Haas, Carl Peterson. I don't know if that's changed or not, but we'll see. Vijay Singh, Steve Stricker, Stuart Sink, Brandon Grace, Bo Hogg, Peter Quest, Patrick Rogers, and Charles Schwartzel. Then top 50 in OWGR that didn't qualify from a previous one would be Matt Fitzpatrick, Bernd Wiesberger, Eric Van Rooyen, Victor Perez, Jazz Janawatanan, Matt Wallace, Christian Benzenhout, Rafa Cabrera Bello, Graham McDowell, and Kevin Streelman. Last 2 qualifications. Top 70 on the FedEx Cup last year, top 70 on the FedEx Cup this year. Okay, stats for this week. So if you got a guy that's going to hit 80% of his greens and has a decent around the green game like Colin Morikawa did last week, then, of course, strokes gain on the approach is so vitally important. But something that I also noticed about Colin Morikawa and Justin Thomas as well, they're gaining strokes on the field on very hard holes. Now, it's a stat that CBS had pulled up, so that'll take me a little while to get into that, but certainly with this golf course being harder, it's typically what that means is it's more longer irons into greens, so more 6 to 4 irons, 7 to 4 irons, somewhere in that range. So and that's why Tiger Woods has done so well here as well. So we're looking for that 175 to 200 approach proximity, or 150 to 200, right in that range. And of course, around the green. If you're good around the green, it can make up for a bad approach game or a couple of misses on the approaches. All right, as I do each and every week at the end of this podcast, which I kind of try and keep between 20 and 25 minutes, which is what I'm trending to right now, which is good. Always good to see. I give you the top 6 salary guesses, and last week I'm silly. When I check out the OWGR of every week and put it on to the first cut there, I got to drag my formula all the way down, of course. And last week it didn't make it down to the tees, so I didn't see Justin Thomas even in the field. But outside of Thomas, I ended up getting almost everybody right in terms of where they came out. In fact, I even got Patrick Cantlay's price right on the number. I got Hideki Matsuyama above 10,000. Although Justin Rose ended up 9.7. He was the only miss that I had. But this week, we are going to go right back to Rory McIlroy as the number 1. I still think that DraftKings is not quite ready to put Justin Thomas, even after the second place finish here, above. It'll be very interesting to see what they do. I think maybe they price both of those guys over 11,000. Maybe Rory at 11.3 and Thomas at 11.2, which is not much change from last week. I think that you're going to get Rahm finally to drop down here in terms of price. I think he'll still be above 10K this week. But of course, we have such a stacked field. Everybody is playing. So it'll be very interesting to see. Patrick Cantlay, another top 10. I expect him to also be above 10K. So, all right, here's what's going to do. Rahm is going to go to 10.8. I think Cantlay is going to stay at 10.6. I think they're going to price him the exact same, but he'll be 4 on the board. I think they're going to throw Tiger Woods in at 5th, which they've shown a propensity to do at 10.4. 10.4K, and then I think Colin Morikawa coming off the win gets the 10.K mark. So they may even, for the first time, have 7 golfers above 10K, especially if they want to give Morikawa that bump up to 10.2K after the win. Maybe they throw in Matsuyama again, whose ownership at 10,000 last week was around 14 or 15%. So I can't imagine they're going to try and drop him down much lower, even with the stronger field. So I'm going to say for the first time, we're going to get 7 golfers above 10,000. It shows you the parity in golf right now. I'm even leaving out guys like Webb Simpson, who's had 2 incredible starts, or at least a win, and Daniel Berger, who's been playing super well. It's just a stacked field this week. And when that happens, DraftKings has some decisions to make in terms of pricing. So I think we'll see 7. Again, to summarize, I think we'll see 7 above 10K. Be interesting to see where they put Tiger Woods at, though. So until next time, everybody, of course, if you're looking for more content, the first cut is live and free. Then I've got give you a quick rundown of what we got coming out this week. On Tuesday or Monday night, Tuesday morning, you'll have the Fit in the Form podcast that goes over the 2 articles released on Monday, the Fit in the Form article and the Strokes Gained article that goes into some deep analysis in terms of how what guys where guys are performing and how they're doing it and how often they're doing it to see if we can find some guys that might be looking to do the same this week. And then, of course, Tuesday afternoon, we've got 2 shows, 2 live YouTube shows. One on Monday, where we look at the odds and salaries right after they're released at 2 o'clock. Myself, Sal Vitri, and Jeff Ulrich do that one. And then Timothy Frank and Ben Raza on the waves on Tuesday for the PGA DFS Strategy Show, a fantastic show in the industry. And then, of course, late on Wednesday evening, Ben Raza and I wrap it all up at 8:30. We take your questions. We play some fun games and give you everything you need to know that happened the previous 3 days if you weren't able to catch anything. So that is the content wrap-up, or at least the quick little wrap-up in terms of what we have going on. So until next time, everybody, thank you for coming by the Opening Tee Podcast, and we will see you on the other side. Cheers.